What's up, guys? I'm recording this after editing. Before I start the video, I just wanted to say, first of all, I'm feeling a bit better, but I'm still a little sick, so sorry if my voice sounds kind of odd or if I sound a bit winded. And also, I'm filming this at my grandparents' house, so sorry if you hear the TV in the background. But anyways, happy Halloween, guys. So I was trying to find a topic that's somewhat spooky for Halloween, and I settled on something that I personally find terrifying, but also pretty fascinating. The Emergency Alert System. Most people associate the EAS with thunderstorms and tornadoes, which is its most common uses, although there are many other fascinating alerts, some that are rare, some that are very rare, and some that, thank goodness, have never been officially used. So today I will cover the history of the EAS, then I'll cover how the system works, then I'll finish off this episode by covering the different alerts that the EAS system is prepared to send. But before we get started, this is just a quick disclaimer that this is a semi-serious podcast that looks way too far into random topics using factual and scientific information for the purpose of both comedy and education. As such, certain points may be over-exaggerated for comedic effect, and I highly recommend people do their own research into the topics discussed in this series. Anyways, even after the inventions of radio and television, a widespread system for relaying emergency information to the public did not exist until after World War II. In the years after the war, there was a major fear in the U.S. that the USSR would utilize its vast arsenal of nuclear weapons to unleash mass destruction. And in 1951, the government decided that in a nuclear scenario, they would need a way to quickly spread life-saving information to the American people. So the Federal Civil Defense Administration, under the guidance of President Truman, would commission CONELRAD that year. The way CONELRAD worked is that in the event of an impending attack, all television and AM radio stations would be required by law to cease broadcasting, and the listener would be prompted to tune their radio to 640 or 1220. Once tuned to the CONELRAD station, the listener would be given important information on what to do to protect themselves. CONELRAD would air via one station for 8 minutes, then it would shut down and air via another station for 8 minutes, and so on. This was to hopefully confuse enemy aircraft, who may have tried tracking the CONELRAD signal to determine where to drop a bomb. While CONELRAD sounds very well thought out, it really wasn't. In a hypothetical nuclear scenario, CONELRAD would have been activated as soon as the military got word of an incoming missile, which would most likely be only 30 minutes before the blast. However, once the blast would actually occur, scientists now know that it would have caused an electromagnetic pulse to disable nearby electronics, which would include the CONELRAD system, rendering it useless after a blast. Eventually, as we got later in the 20th century, the threat of nuclear war somewhat calmed down, but the government still liked the idea of having a nationwide system to share emergency information. So in 1963, the Emergency Broadcast System, EBS for short, was launched. The purpose of the EBS was so that the president could quickly speak to the public during a national emergency. The EBS worked a bit more similarly to the modern EAS. First, a primary station, CPCS1, would activate the system and the broadcast would begin with the attention tone. This tone would have a frequency of 853 to 960 hertz, which is specifically designed to be a very uncomfortable sound, which was meant to hopefully attract the listener's attention. Then, the alert would be transmitted to local relay stations, which would rebroadcast the attention tone and then the message. A nationwide use of the system was known as an EAN, or an Emergency Action Notification. There was never an intentional EAN, however in 1971 an EAN was accidentally activated during the early morning hours of February 20th. It was supposed to be a routine test, but the operator accidentally selected the wrong tape. The creepy part was that the message, the code word broadcasted was hatefulness. The message sent out was message number 1, which stated that the message was sent by the request of the U.S. government but gave no specific cause. Due to technical errors that followed, the cancellation message would not reach all stations until 40 minutes after the false alert. The test did display the flaws in the EBS system, however, as only 20% of stations relayed the message that they were legally required to. So it became clear, once again, that a new system was necessary. So in 1994, the FCC approved the creation of the modern EAS, Emergency Alert System. The EAS launched nationwide on January 1st, 1997. The EAS is jointly managed by FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the FCC, and NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Modern EAS alerts contain 4 parts: a SAME header, the attention signal, the audio announcement, and the end of message marker. The SAME header and end of message marker are both various tones that are encoded with binary data, which is how the message finds itself broadcast in the right locations, and they contain data on the type of emergency. The attention tone is similar to the EBS, an uncomfortable noise meant to grab the listener's attention, and the message is digitally read by a robotic voice. What specific information is read, locations, instructions, etc., is determined by the EAS operator who sends the message. Every TV and radio station in the U.S. is required to cooperate with EAS broadcasting. One thing important to mention is that the EAS system is technically different than the WEA, or the Wireless Emergency Alert System, which sends emergency notifications out to cell phones and mobile devices. However, authorities generally use both systems during times of emergency. So now we know how the EAS works, but what are the different types of alerts that could be used? Tornado warning. The tornado warning is issued when the National Weather Service either predicts or spots a tornado in an affected area.
In charge.
The National Weather Service in Indianapolis has issued a tornado warning for northeastern Davies County, Greene County, northern Martin County until 10:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. At 9:31 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, National Weather Service Doppler radar indicated a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado. This dangerous storm was located near Linton, or 30 miles southeast of Terre Haute, and moving southeast at 35 miles per hour. In addition, at Midland, a rotating wall cloud was reported by train spotters at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time with this storm. This storm has a history of producing ping-pong-size hail as well. Locations impacted include Bloomfield, Worthington, Swift City, Lyons, Newberry, Crane, Burns City, Owensburg. Take cover now. Move to an interior room on the lowest floor of a sturdy building. Avoid windows. If in a mobile home, a vehicle, or outdoors, move to the closest substantial shelter and protect yourself from flying debris.
Unlike a tornado watch, a tornado warning that means that the threat of severe weather is imminent. There are usually 3 categories of tornado EAS warnings. A standard tornado warning is issued when a small tornado is on the ground or forming. A PDS, potentially dangerous situation, tornado warning is issued when a larger, more dangerous tornado is on the ground or forming. And finally, a tornado emergency warning is issued when a violent storm is expected to inflict damage on heavily populated areas. This alert is thankfully the rarest of the tornado warnings, because after a tornado emergency warning is issued, it's usually followed by devastation. Tornado warnings in general occur pretty often in the U.S., and some communities frequently test this warning. The general instructions for tornado warnings is to immediately seek shelter in a sturdy building, away from windows and in the lowest and/or most central room of the building. Another unfortunately common emergency alert is a child abduction emergency, often known as an Amber Alert.
Stop down there to the resort of Portillo. Olympics power rising in the Winter Games.
State Police, at the request of Cecil County Sheriff's Office, have issued a Maryland Child Amber Alert for Hannah Lynn Harrigan. Hannah Lynn Harrigan is further described as being 3 feet and 42 pounds. The child was last seen wearing a pink coat, blue jeans, a black Hello Kitty long-sleeve shirt. The The child was last observed at approximately 5:30 p.m. in the area of 5655 Telegraph Road in Elkton, Maryland. This child is believed to have been abducted by Peter Giles Peltier. Peter Giles Peltier, a white male described as being 5 feet 8 inches tall and 160 pounds. The suspect may be wearing a dark coat and a black hat. The possible suspect vehicle is a 1995 Ford Mustang convertible, forest green in color with a black roof. The vehicle has damage to the roof and several spots have silver and or black tape bearing Maryland registration 9EFL19. Anyone with information is asked to immediately call 911 or the Cecil County Sheriff's Office at 410-996-5511. Do not take action which could endanger your safety or further endanger the abducted child. All immediate inquiries should be directed to call 410-996-5511.
Times. We carry them home. We carry them.
Child abduction emergency alerts occur when a child in the area goes missing. The term Amber Alerts is derived from the story of Amber Hagerman, a young girl who was kidnapped and later found dead. Her parents became some of the biggest advocates for creating a system to notify the community of missing children, and these alerts have since saved countless lives. These alerts are generally issued by local or state authorities. The general instructions for child abduction emergencies are to keep a watch for a child matching the description, name, age, last seen outfit, gender, race, hair color as listed in the alert. Sometimes, in vehicle-related incidents, the vehicle's license plate may be part of the alert as well. If you see something that matches the EAS description, you should immediately call 911 to report it. There are dozens of alerts in the EAS system, and I honestly might make a part 2 to this. That would be a long introspective. But for today, let's conclude with a pretty rare one. While technically 2 different alerts, I am going to talk about the civil emergency message and the civil danger warning.
The following message is transmitted at the request of the Pennington County Emergency Management. A wildfire is burning just west of Rapid City. Residents of the Westbury Trail subdivision are asked to evacuate immediately into Rapid City. All others should avoid this area. Follow the instructions of your local emergency management or law enforcement officials. Call the Pennington County Emergency Management Office at 605-394-2185 for additional information.
Both alerts are generally issued by local or state authorities. A civil emergency message is sent when there is a potential, but not necessarily imminent, risk to public safety that doesn't fall under any of the other alert categories. Civil emergencies can range from chemical spills and severe infrastructure issues to even terroristic threats. But a relatively common civil emergency is dangerous individuals, prison breaks, out-of-control protests and riots, police standoffs, etc. On the other hand, a civil danger warning is more severe and is sent out when there is an imminent risk to public safety. Think of major water contaminations, military activity, active terrorism, mass shootings, etc. For both alerts, the correct instructions depend, as authorities may urge people to evacuate or shelter in place. Like I said earlier, I find the emergency alert system to be both unsettling and fascinating at the same time, and we've barely even scratched the surface. So if you want to see a longer introspective about this, make sure to like the video. Anyways, happy Halloween, stay safe, get some candy, and I'll see you guys in the next episode of Liam's Random Introspectives.